What's up, y'all? Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. Well, I don't know if you can tell it or not, but the rain basically put the brakes on what I was going to do, and that was going to be plant some blueberries, where they're needed. I found a really good deal, and I talked a little bit about it in the podcast, but that's really not what this one's all about. It's on the heels of what someone asked a little while ago, and it was, believe it or not, when I was doing one of the last videos like this, a front porch talk. And it was about Black History Month. There was one of the comments in there, and in fact, there was, I think, even an email. I get so much correspondence that I can't exactly tell you where it came from. But there was a couple of smart aleck comments like, oh, are you going to be as critical on Women's History Month? What were you expecting out of me? I mean, did you conjure that I'm so much of a chauvinist that I was going to get on here and say, iron my shirt? Is that what you were expecting? Because apparently you don't know much about me, and you don't know how much of a champion for women that I've been. In fact, the class that I taught this last weekend, the second class I taught at Organic Grower School, it was all women. The one guy in there got up and left. I mean, maybe he was a little threatened by, I don't know, maybe there was too much testosterone in the room. I don't know what the deal was. But anyway, these women were fantastic. And I like to think that maybe it was my job to try to maybe make them realize that this lifestyle is way more possible than maybe they've ever been led to believe. I usually put out a video on Friday, not always. But man, this one has really, really been on my mind. Usually negative comments don't bother me even the slightest. And those of you out there that do them, you know that to be true. It's never bothered me, not in recent time, not when I became really comfortable and aware of who I am and who I should be. And I really don't care. There's a lot of miserable people out there. And to quote David Goggins, find me a hater out there that's doing better than you. And that applies to all of us. So anyway, Women's History Month. Okay. Yeah, I could go on about that, and I don't even want to know the women that they champion in the schools these days. I want to tell you a couple of stories. Now, these happened a while back. I remember it was Michelle in welding school. Grandparents showed up and they said, man, our granddaughter really, really wants to get into this, but her dad won't let her have anything to do with it because she's just a girl. Do you realize that they said this to a woman that grew up with that same stigma that has taken a lifetime and still needs work regarding all this negative pressure about what a woman's role should be and how you can't color outside the lines? What they didn't realize is that the woman they were saying to was an accomplished soldier, a magna cum laude graduate from college at the University of Kansas, and also struggled with all these things that she wasn't supposed to do. But that's who they were talking to. So think about that granddaughter for a minute. You're telling your kids, well, you're just a woman. And there's a lot of you guys out there, especially, that are doing the polar opposite, saying, look, you can go after Moby Dick in a rowboat and take the tartar sauce with you. You're teaching those. There's a lot of good people out there too. But we tend to focus on the negative. But yeah, there are a number of them. Frankly, back in the old days, I was as guilty as anybody. I was not the man I am now. And I had to undo a lot of nonsense that was programmed into me, like all of it is, and, develop into who I am. So I have made colossal mistakes. But I like to think that maybe I've atoned for them, or at least it's probably going to be a lifetime thing. Let's not forget about all you women who are really some of the worst culprits in making the other women feel the way they do. True story. I was on my way to a job that I was doing. I was working at a radio station in Kansas City. Stopped at a local grocery store, and as I'm in line, there's a lady in front of me. And she's, I'll put it this way, well manicured. She had every augmentation you could possibly imagine. And then right next to her, waiting in line, it's pretty busy and deep at the time. Waiting in line, there's a girl, she couldn't have been more than 12 years old. I'm guessing her daughter. And she turns around, as I'm waiting in line, turns around to the little girl. Honey, I'm sorry, but it looks like you're going to need some boobs too. Folks, true story. As I was waiting in line to check out, third most embarrassing moment in my life, not because of what she said, is because of what I didn't say. But I guess if I'm to give myself a little bit of grace here, in fairness, you ever have those situations where it's so bizarre and so unusual that later on you're thinking, man, I really wish I would have said something and I didn't? Well, that's, like I said, one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, in that I just stood there slack-jawed and stymied because this mom told her daughter that all of your self-worth resides in your boobs. And then how about all you other women out there that have told your kids and your grandkids, oh, you got to look pretty. I heard this one a lot. You got to look pretty so you can marry a doctor someday. How about telling your daughter or granddaughter you could be a doctor if that's what you wanted to be, preferably a naturopath? Women often say, and people often say in general, that men have pack mentalities. But I swear, man, some of you women are just as bad. Well, what does that say of you ladies out there who dog other women because they don't look a certain way, because they don't have certain clothes, because they may have some unusual whatever about them, and you guys sit here and chit-chat behind their backs and make that person feel so incredibly awful? I guess I said all that to say this, that, I don't know what history they're being taught these days, and frankly, I don't even know if I want to know. But for all you people out there that are saying, oh, she's just a girl, she can't do this, or this is the way it always was for me, let's think about a couple of things just off the top of my head. It was a woman who stopped hangman's gallows. In fact, all through the Old and New Testament, you would find a whole lot of extraordinary or ordinary women that did unbelievable and extraordinary things. How about that little French girl who led a revolt to kick the English out of France? Yeah, she ended up being martyred, I think, at 19. But yeah, that was a woman. Did you know that there has only been one person to win a Nobel Prize in two different sciences, chemistry and physics? It was a woman. Let's not forget a woman who defeated polio as a child to become the first American female athlete to win 3 golds in the 1960s Olympics. That was Wilma Rudolph. But you don't talk about those people. You don't talk about those people. You quote people like Oprah. Girl, you just got to be happy. Yeah, she never tells you, girl, you just got to be responsible. Or you quote other people like, let's say, the in thing now is doing the vocal fry and the up talk from people like the Kardashians. You'll tell them and encourage them to follow those people. But meanwhile, you don't tell them to follow the women I just talked about. And they quote Hillary Clinton, but they forget about the quotes of other women who said some pretty astonishing things. And maybe you ought to tell your little girls this on Women's History Month. It was a woman that said, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. It was another woman that said, nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. Yeah, there was Eleanor Roosevelt and Harriet Tubman, respectively. Maybe it's not your idea to follow the dictates of fashion or to fall into what others think, or for what you might think as a young lady is domestic dullness. Maybe that's not for you. But go out there, forge your own way, find out what makes sense for you, and stop listening to the naysayers out there. And frankly, all you ladies and guys out there that are saying things like, you're just a woman or go marry a doctor, shame on you. Let's just have a history month, for crying out loud. But if we're going to have a Women's History Month, maybe have your young ladies focus on people, women, that did unbelievable and extraordinary things. Things that almost certainly won't be in the history books. And if they are, they'll probably be bastardized. Till next time, this is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion.